Well, I don't know about the Androids. Maybe they're different. All right, well, if you can't get it to work, if you'll type in tinyurl.com/treechurch, you'll get the same thing there. I'm happy to provide tech support for the next 10 minutes if you would like it. You got it already? All right. You're welcome. Does anybody else need help? Raise your hand. This is free. Free service.
So you put the camera on it, did you say?
Yes, sir. Okay, I've just learned something about the Android devices. If you have a separate app, if you have an Android called the QR code, you just type in QR into your search, the little app shows up.
I have an Android and it came up just like.
Did it show up the way it's supposed to? Okay, so one or the other, it will work. Or you can go to the members website, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to help simplify things. Yep. Oh, to the Wi-Fi here? So if you need access to Wi-Fi, we have a guest Wi-Fi, and it is the church's telephone number, just 936-539-9530. If you just came in, we only printed about 4 copies of the annual report, just kind of keep costs down. But if you would use your smartphone, you can take your camera app and zoom in on the QR code. It should pop up with a link. Press the link and you will have the code in hand. If you have a dumb phone, we will have paper copies just for you. Yeah, there you go. It's actually not a dumb phone, it's called a feature phone.
Good morning. 9:15. We'll call this meeting to order. By rule of our bylaws and constitution, we have at least 10% of our congregation here, so we do have a quorum established. If you have not signed in, raise your hand. All right. Keep it going. After you sign, look around. Have someone else do that. And we'll begin with opening prayer.
Yes, sir. Lord be with you. Let us pray. Holy, gracious God, the world is your place. You created it, and you brought us into it. And you've challenged us to be good stewards of it. And today we take part in that challenge. To be the church that you've called us to be the people you've called us to be, to do the work you've called us to do. And all these things require, well, a little forethought, planning, and participation. So as we take part in the business work of this church, God, may we always remember that you called us to this work, and with that we come with holy intentions. We ask all these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, consent agenda will include the approval of the agenda as it is up here, not as it was earlier in the week. We made one little change in that. Approval of the minutes from last year's meetings, all of the meetings, 4, 5 point January, and also 6, May 6th, August 2nd, and November 11th. I have been given 2 amendments already that were delivered to me, and those will be small minor corrections, and we'll fix those. Any other comments on the minutes? All right, so we have a consent agenda for items 4, 5, and 6. A motion to accept that. George Timmons, second. Mr. Dick Mung. Discussion? Comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes carry it. All right. Hey, we're all the way through 6 items, okay. So let's move on to the next slide. All right. President's report. President's report gives an opportunity for us to look back in the year. This is also my first report of the year, as this was my first year as president of the congregation, taking over for Dennis. And so I'm going to try to do this in a pretty high level, and then we'll move on from there. And obviously, if there's any questions, so we can move on to the next slide, Megan. To talk about, next slide, to talk about the 2018, one more slide. There we go. To talk about 2018, it seems like we need to back up just a little bit about all that it was happening in 2017 that led us into 2018. If you recall, that was Pastor had a sabbatical in the summer to make him feel welcome. We had a hurricane then. Hurricane Harvey came in, so that got to swing our muck and gut and relief teams into full swing for a while. That was also the year that we said goodbye to Ryan Dockery as he went to serve his internship. And a year later, he's back here in the neighborhood, or at least close by. We hired Emily Work during that year to serve as an apprenticeship. And these things happen, Yes. And my microphone died.
I think I've got 2 right here.
All right.
Can you tap next?
No, I can just talk really loud. Everybody hear me? All right. I can talk even louder if you can't hear me. There is no limit to my volume. That was also the year that Pastor Larry Smith retired for the last time, and that created a situation in which we were 2 people back. Fortunately, we had Carrie Peterson working her way through seminary school with us, and we no longer have to project as high. So those are all the things that kind of led into 2017, and I thought that was important because the dynamics of 2017 had a lot to do with the plans and the game plan for 2018. Next slide. So 2018 highlights included significant changes, obviously, in new staff roles. Emily left us in August. We went through a pretty intensive thought process. Well, the one part wasn't very intensive. Putting Bunny into the youth director role and keeping some of the key things that she was doing already as office manager was step one, and that was the easy step. We all affirmed that. It was a great move with that. Then in a pretty extensive search process that ended up hiring Megan Dillon. And the other part was the process to generate an idea of having Carrie continue as an intern. You know, with Ryan, he left to do his internship, and so we again plowed some new ground and began that process, and that will be seen this year, actually in the fall, when Carrie will actually begin her internship here at Tree of Life. I think that begins in September, and Pastor may have some more information on where we're at in that whole process with that. So that was part of that. I think there's one more slide I got on that. In the ministry areas, one of the things that we wanted to do, expand adult education, establish Stephen's ministry. Those things got accomplished in 2018. And the other part was to mature and empower the ministry teams that had really started in 2017 as a way for us to kind of fill in the gap while pastor was would be gone and would be a person down. The ministry teams actually flourished and started to expand and filled in nicely beyond our expectations. And so we really wanted to keep those going. And so we spent some time making sure that as you have that kind of growth, what do you do to make sure that you maintain the intimacy of that? And so we added a new role to the council members. They all became a liaison to one of the ministry teams. Now, in some cases, they actually were the chair, so it was an easy liaison. You can talk to yourself as chair and as liaison, and as long as you don't get too schizophrenic over it, it's all right. The other part of that was some of them had served in those ministries already, and so it was a natural one. And the idea was not to be intrusive or in any way, just to make sure that there was a link specifically with our strategic plan, that we are advancing and moving our strategic plan forward, and that we're not going off on a tangent away from the strategic plan, that it's always moving forward relative to that. So that was a couple of things, and that's actually working out very well for us. Kind of a cool thing that happened last year, it was a tight budget. It was a successful budget, as Jim will show you in a minute. But we really couldn't get enough money in the budget for the needs of this facility, which is an aging facility. When it gets over 20 years old, it's like dog years. Things start to happen a little bit with that. And we decided to adopt a project, and we had identified between $6,000 and $10,000 worth of needs that we, if we had used all of that in the spring, there would have been no money for anything else left in the budget. We put that out to all y'all, and all y'all paid for it. Everybody picked a project and or just an amount and put that in there. It was interesting. The dollars needed almost exactly matched the dollars that were contributed. I thought there was some God's work in that. We may come back and use that again, although you don't want to go to the well too often. Eventually you come up with something not as much in the wall as you'd want. The other big goal that we have is, and this was more of a long-range goal that came out of the strategic planning process when we had our retreat last year, was to shore up our internal governance in relation to the belief that we are a growing church. And so we tried to address the question, we're a congregation that has about 200 in attendance. What will we look like, and what will we be like, and what do we need to be like when we're 350? And in order to be ready for 350, you can't wait till you're there. You have to start moving in that direction. So we've been doing some things to think, what if, and then therefore we shall try to do some of those things. And so we had been working on a formalized written policy manual. We had a lot of policies that were in place, that were written, that staff had for weddings and some meetings and some of the things like that, but there was not a comprehensive manual on that. And at our last meeting, we actually approved that manual. It had been about a 2-year process, actually, with a lot of sweat equity went into that manual. It is a manual. It is not a bylaws. It is not the Constitution. It's not complete at this point, but it's pretty much complete, and it has an appendix as well, which we're going to look at. The council has reviewed that a few times, and we'll be in the process of approving that, and we'll have that pretty much put to bed as we can put it at this point. Also, if you're going to move from 200 to 350, you're going to have more than 3 or 4 staff. And so an employee manual, an employee handbook is very necessary. And so that was another project that we addressed this year. And the final rough draft is actually in the staff's hands at this point for them to review, compare with some of the things that may already be in place that I was not aware of. I've been the author of that employee manual. And for us to sit down and finalize that. So that'll be a goal that we'll get accomplished this year, is to have a formalized employee manual, which precipitates ability to us for have reviews with the staff and address all the kind of things that you need when you're 10 staff instead of 4 or 5 staff. And that other part is that strengthen the communication, and I talked about that already with the group of with the use of the liaison. For most of us who are in business, and you survey people who are in business and you ask them what the toughest issue for them to solve and stay solved is communications. And so for us to be cognizant of that and do everything we can is what we want to be. And then the final areas of importance for us, one was the fiduciary responsibilities to try to formalize our stewardship program and make it a little bit more far-reaching and longer horizons with that. And you saw a lot of that happen with Jim Lameau, and he'll have a brief report here in a minute. And then leadership development. One of the things that we wanted to try to establish was a process of thinking about the next generation of leaders here at Tree of Life. And so we have as a goal to identify, nurture, and develop future leaders for Tree of Life, most of whom I'm looking at, and folks that will be coming, that'll be joining us in terms of a process. We don't have a lot of form to that yet, but we do have a commitment that we'll stay cognizant of that and figure out ways that we can help bring people along, have them understand the infrastructure of the church, the governance and the council, and those things of that nature. And so those are the highlights for 2018. Any comments, questions, concerns? Yes. I'll brag on the council. It's a great, very active and proactive council. And our meetings are quite lively. And the council members are chuckling, yes. It's like herding cats at times, I can tell you that. But it's a good bunch of cats, and so we're getting a lot of good things done, and they've all rolled up their sleeves and taken on their roles very positively and with great faith, and so good things are happening all the way. We really do have a good team. I think God puts people in certain places at certain times for really good reasons, and He's done that there. So yes, Jim.
The manuals, the employee, the council governance, all those, is the expectation is once those get to a final version to make those available to the rest of the congregation?
I don't see why not. The question is, will you all be able to see the final versions? And there's nothing confidential about any of those things. I can tell you that the policy manual, I used, Pastor and Bunny went to 2 or 3 other churches that had policy manuals in place, and that was part of the model that I used. I've written employee manuals on my side, but I haven't done it from a church side, and so it was really nice to see their models and the things that they would address that we would have never thought about in business, and vice versa. So yeah, we'll put that up on the webpage when it's all cleaned up and ready for public consumption. Sure. All right, well, let's move on. I think that's it for the president's report. A motion to accept my report? Okay. All right, I'm going to put you in there. We'll put Larry in there, all right? All right, George, a little slower next time. Let someone else get in, all right? Okay. All right. At the end of the next report, there's going to be an opportunity for someone new to, that way you can prove you've been here. You know, all right, so, okay. All right. Let's see, pastor's reports next. Very good. Oh, wait a minute. Thank you. Can't get anything by Dennis. He's done this for many, many years. So, no further discussion on the motion to accept. That's all you had to do is accept. Didn't have to approve it. I'm not looking for approval right yet, just acceptance. I'll say aye. Yes. Aye. All right. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Another year with Tree of Life. Questions already? Yes, by all means. Say that again. It would be my pleasure. My name is Chris Lake. I serve as the pastor of Tree of Life Lutheran Church, now going on year 11. Who knew? The journey over the last year, as Jack pointed out, has been, oh my goodness gracious, yes, please. I've been doing this for actually 15 years as an ordained pastor, but I've actually been doing it even longer if you count the years I was in youth ministry. So.
All right. We have 45 minutes. Let's hold questions to the end. Thank you, John.
I just do as the people ask, Jack. I just do as the people ask.
It's my job to keep them moving.
You know, when you talked about herding cats, I was like, I am so guilty of that. I am the reason it's the way it is, and, you know, nature of the biz. The work of the last year has been unique, to say the least. We went through a lot of transition, and on staff-wise, which is primarily my responsibility in terms of what we do as a council, we found ourselves having to replace our youth director, and that wasn't wonderful, wasn't ideal, wasn't exactly how I would have wanted it all to go down. We certainly wish Emily best, though, and we'll continue to pray for her in her journeys. And I was reluctant to shift Bunny Stutes into the position of youth director for total and complete selfish reasons, because I was convinced that she was the only one who could keep me from driving this place into the ground. But Bunny felt a call, and it was a strong call, and she helped me hear what she was seeing. All right, truthfully, my wife had words with me and said, here's what you're not seeing, husband. And I, you know, we transitioned, and then we went looking for a new secretary, and I have to tell you, we have another winner. She is a wonderful addition to the staff. I have to tell you, it's, I am the weakest person on that staff, all right? They are absolutely amazing, amazing people, and I only hope that this next year you'll get to see more and more of that as we move forward. In terms of where is the church and worship, which again is another area that I take a lot of hands-on responsibility for, to a certain extent. And the reason I say that is this. With Carrie coming on board, Pastor Larry had a certain skill set that he could do because he was an ordained minister. Carrie is not. And as a result, not because of anything that I choose, but just the nature of the system, I needed to find things to plug her into that she was passionate about, that she could, quite frankly, legally do in the church. And so she is in charge of women's ministry, which if you've walked past her classroom, you know that that is incredibly successful. She still continues to drive the Tuesday night pub theology, thank you, and that is phenomenally successful. I mean, it seems like everything she touches turns to gold, so I said, you're in charge of worship. And so she basically designs and shapes and makes it look like what it's supposed to look like in her vision. And it's not necessarily what I would have done, but as I mentioned earlier, I've been here 11 years. You've seen everything I'm going to do. So I'm interested in new ideas and new thoughts and new impressions, and she is bringing wonderful things to the table. And she does let me participate here and there, so I think that's really gracious of her. When she transitions next year into internship, and I'll speak just very quickly to that, right now she is what we call a second year or middler seminary student, if you kind of follow the traditional path. After she finishes up this year, she will go on internship. Now, unlike Ryan, we were able to figure out a way to keep her here. I say that we found a way where there's a certain amount of hedging our bets here. At some point, the decision process leaves the local area and it goes to the powers that be upstairs. Normally they rubber stamp whatever we say here locally. I have the assurance from my local synodical authorities that they think she would be an excellent candidate here. There are a few things we have to do. We are not technically an internship site. Seems strange seeing how we just raised one seminarian from babe to full adulthood, but all right, fine. We filled out all the paperwork, all of that's done, and then we kind of see what happens. We are aligned for all these things to happen, but the church is a quirky thing, and I only bring this up because there are things that are outside of our control. I don't think this is going to be an issue, but I want you to be aware that this seminary will have a say in this, quite frankly, and they don't like it, well, we'll have more hoops to jump. But it seems to me, as it stands right now, seminaries are not in a position to ask a bunch of questions and do a lot of pushing and pulling. They're at the mercy of the congregations that help make these things happen, and my hope is that they'll play ball with us. We certainly have the only best intention for Carrie to grow and become the pastor that we see her to be. So, assuming all that falls into place, her role then will shift into a more pastoral role, and she'll continue to do what she's doing, just more. And that'll be just fine. I really see us as a teaching congregation. You have teaching hospitals, well, we're a teaching congregation, meaning that we allow for folks to come and try things. Sometimes they work. And sometimes, as we say in retrospect, mistakes were made. We expect mistakes around here, not because we do things badly, but because we're always trying new things. And we want that. We think it keeps the place alive and fresh and keeps us on our toes. And I hope you feel that way too. I think it is a very healthy and very appropriate place for any congregation to be. So, with all that said, I don't want to end with negative numbers, but I do think it's fair to share with you that our attendance dropped just a little bit last year, more than I would have liked. We were pushing in the mid-80s, and now we're down into the high 70s. However, if I can play with numbers just a little bit with you, in another lifetime, I was a psychology major at Texas Lutheran. Hard to believe, I'm sure. And I actually paid attention to a few classes, and one of those classes was statistics. And so I learned all kinds of wonderful things, in particular about how do you read data. And so if I was to tell you that our averages for, let's say, starting in 2016, for 2016 was 177, and then last year we came in at roughly 177 again, and then this year, I'm sorry, I'm getting this wrong. Good thing I know how to clear all that out. All right. In 2016, our average worship attendance was 185. Okay? And then the next year after that, again, was close to 185. And then this year, we're 176. Now, if you just read by that number, it looks like we're declining. But, like I said, I was a psychology major. So if I look at the numbers from a different vantage point, the problem with averages is that if you have great big highs and great big lows, it throws the numbers off. You don't actually get a real feel for what's going on. So if I look at the median, which means I pick the middle number where all those numbers fall in over the last 3 years, we go from 177, 176, to 179. And if I really wanted to impress you, I'd tell you that our standard deviations over those 3 years were 22, 31, and 19. Now, those numbers may not mean anything to you, but here's what they mean. The year that we had last year, which we had this massive growth, you'll see that our variations from Sunday to Sunday were huge, meaning that we had as many as 31 people here or not here on any given Sunday. If you look at last year's number, we grew in a median, and it's more consistent Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. And to add to that, we're seeing, one of the questions that never made sense to my mind is we're seeing all this great worship attendance, but financially it's not showing up in the plate. Well, this year it did. So we're finally seeing things kind of level out and be a consistent, sustainable thing. And in that regard, I'm very excited about where we're headed as a congregation. And I'm kind of curious to see where we head to next. This area is growing at an insane rate. They just widened 2854. That's not an accident. Everything we've read says that's where all the growth is going to be. And guess which church lands right at the end of 2854? You have to come around and pass us every single time. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure you stop before you make a left or to a right or go further down the road or go anywhere else. We hope that people will find us to be a viable place to come and be. And you keep doing what you're doing, which is that when folks come through the door, you say hello. You're nice to them. You're polite. That's really, really helpful. Because what happens is when we're nice to the visitors, guess what? See, I tell people all the time, they just figured it out on their own. It was brilliant. We are in a stronger position than we've been before, but don't get lax. Please continue to be the mission statement here in body form. Invite, inspire, include all people. We keep doing that, I think we're going to make this world just a little bit better, and I think our world could use a little bit of hope. That's all I have for my report. Any questions? Not from you?
Except for John.
Thank you. May I get a motion?
To accept.
Oh, I have a kidlet here right here who's... Jillian would like to move. What would you like to move there, Jillian? Yeah, what he said. Yeah. I have a first. Can I get a second? Thank you.
Oh, we were close. We almost had a youth movement there.
Gotta get a vote and then we're good.
All right, motion to accept. All say aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Is the stewardship report up? First on the financial report, very good. There, and I gave Jim lots of warning about this one.
Well, thank you, Jack. So just in the same vein, my name is Jim Lameau. I've been a member here for 2 years. I've been alive for 46 years. My favorite color is green. So Jack asked me to actually just give a quick overview of the stewardship campaign that we hosted this last fall. So all of you actually were able to provide over $300,000 in pledges for this upcoming calendar year. And that was extremely beneficial to the council to help them put in the plans that you're going to see later here in this presentation. In addition to that, we had approximately 14 families that had already contributed through ongoing pledges, $16,000. And then we also had a number of pledges from 2018 that had not yet pledged, so we made an estimate about what that number was going to look like. That total was a little over $60,000. So when we look at the total stewardship contribution for what we're expecting in 2019, That comes out to the $378,000 that you see on the screen in front of you. And then as a final reminder, this last year was the first year of our 3-year stewardship program that we're going to be doing. It's focusing on our mission statement. Last year was Invite. Here in 2019, we're going to be focusing on Inspire for the stewardship campaign, and then following that up with Inclusion for 2020. So with that, I'll hand it back to Jack.
Very good. One thing, stay back on that just one more second there, Megan. One thing about the last line, the expected 28 contributions, those are considered non-pledged contributions, and in the years past, that non-pledged calculation by council was a lot of faithful guesswork. Because of the data that we've been collecting over the last several years and the good work that Jim has done, especially this year, that number is a lot more solid than it has been in the past. So we're happy with that, and you'll see that reflected when you see the budget. Speaking of budgets and financial statements, may I introduce Mr. Jimmy V.
Thank you, sir.
Oh.
Good morning. I don't know if I can hold this talk and flip pages at the same time. We're going to give it a whirl. 2018, good news. You can see what the offering and income was. You can see what the expenses were, and you can see the shortfall. But that shortfall was really zeroed out. We broke even last year and actually carried over some money into this year. I don't know if you remember back in 2017, but December of 2017, you were very, very generous. And we got a lot of money in December, and that carried over into 2018. And so this year, we paid back the money that we had borrowed from seeds earlier in the year. So we were absolutely made it this year. And actually carried over $14,000 into this year, which I'll show you when we get to the new budget. So it's a good year. I think this is the first time I've gotten up in the last couple of years where I haven't said we're in the hole. We're not in the hole. We made it. Let's go and take a look at the next slide. This is the pledged offering, and this is Jim's work. He did a really great job, and as Jack stated, and I want to reemphasize, I really think these numbers are going to be solid this year because a lot more thought and a lot more data went into the decisions of making the estimate. Previous years, we kind of winged it based on the year before and the year before, and for the last 2 years, we really overestimated what the non-pledged offering would be. And that was really kind of the downfall when we were kind of running behind the train. So this year, I think we've really got a good, solid budget estimate. Let me take you to let me make a couple of quick comments on the completion of the budget this year. We showed the total offering and income. We showed you earlier the total expenses. That 541 is really a number that was actually less than the approved budget. The staff did a super job in terms of reducing costs and keeping them down to the absolute minimum. And so that 541 is really probably about 6 or 7% below what the budget was approved at. And that's a great job by the staff. Okay, let's go to the 2018 budget. The expenses are the standard expenses that you've seen in every budget every year. This does include a 3% raise for the staff. And
Are you talking 2018 or 2019?
okay, I'm just you're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get to 2019.
Jim, can we have a motion to accept the 2018 financial report?
Okay, we can do that. We'll take a motion for the approval of the 2018 report, which I just kind of gave you.
I
Lisa, second. Who do we get? Dick?
No, we got Larry Finke.
Get Larry. Good. Okay. I'm going to spread it around a little bit.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, either. I was going to hold those to the end, but that's okay.
Doing what I can there. Well,
Yeah.
if we second a motion, we have to at least open it up
I
to
gotcha.
questions before we vote.
Yeah. I commanded a brigade in the Army. I'm not used to asking in advance. It's just not in my DNA.
We
So
appreciate
I
you meeting us little people
apologize.
the way you do, Jim. It means
apologize.
everything to us. All right, seeing no. There we go.
Motion carried. Thank you. All right, now 2019, buddy.
Okay, 2019 budget is, our projected income is 520.4. Our proposed expenditures are 543, following the same lines, which basically included all of the ministries that we have accomplished during 2018. We're plussing up, I think, a little bit in the evangelism area, trying to get a little bit more outreach into the community, a little more advertising, a few more banners, a few more activities. And it includes a 3% raise for the staff. You'll see the shortfall at the bottom of $23,500. About the same amount of over budget that we did last year. And as I mentioned, we broke even and carried over a little bit. But I wanted to remind you that we do have a carryover. And the carryover this year is roughly $14,000. So actually, we really are only about $9,500 delta between the pledges and what the budget is, which is the lowest number we had. George?
On the proposed expenditures, 2017 actual, is that supposed to be 2018?
I'm going to have to get close to you, George. Okay, the answer is yes, George.
On the 2017 the proposed expenditures, do you have it says 2017 actuals instead of 2018 actuals?
Okay, that's just, yeah, that should be 2018. And so that kind of is the budget. Before I wrap up my little piece of this thing, I don't see him out here. Oh, there he is. Ted back there. Ted, stand up. Ted is the guy that does all the work. He just doesn't like to do anything on a microphone. And so he lets me get up here and look stupid. So thank you, Ted. I really do appreciate everything that you do and kind of keep the budget straight. He does all the accounting, all the reports that you see. So.
Is there another slide with the details, or is that the?
That's all the slides I've got. They're put together.
All right. There's the details, some of the details with that. You'll note a couple of things. I wanted to add just a couple of points. Going back to how a church runs if they have 350 members versus 200 members, one of the things that we are doing differently is the entire budgeting process. In years past, the folks on the budgeting team kind of get started literally after the stewardship campaign. So they didn't get really going until October, November. And December and January was wild, crazy, smashing numbers together so that we could present a budget to you in January. We started in August this year. And the direction that we gave Jim's team was focus on the expenses first. Don't worry about the income. Focus on the expenses first. And let's really feel good about what we think the expenses are. And so Jim and Ted actually developed, I think, a 3-scenario expense line. The line that we wanted, the line if it was a worst case scenario, and then there was one in the middle. And fortunately, we actually pretty much stayed with the line we wanted after the budget. And they were going back to the ministry chairs to the staff and asking them questions about their plans for next year. And so everything that on the expense side, so by the time we got to October, we had a pretty good handle of what we thought the expenses were going to be while we're working on the stewardship campaign. So we didn't match the expenses to the income. God matched them for us. And so we actually had the budget done, signed, sealed, and delivered and accepted in December. And there was no tweaking or anything after that. We were pretty much done with that. You'll also, I didn't hear anybody raise any hands, but we actually are projecting less total income this year by $11,000 than we did last year. And we just wanted to try to be as accurate as we possibly could on the expenses. I lost that argument. I wanted to be more optimistic, and I lost that argument. So we stayed with what we really felt was possible, and our plan is we can beat it. But that's what we have there. So with that, you have the basic information and all of that. There's a few of the key highlighted items that Jim talked about. Staff obviously being our largest single expense, mortgage being our next single largest expense, and then our number one priority, youth, being the next largest expense, with evangelism, I think perhaps the most important expense for us, as Pastor was talking about, and what we're seeing over the next several years. So I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion to accept and approve the 2019 budget. Lisa, Dave, the back. All right.
Question up there.
Yes.
We need a second before we can do that.
Well, I got a second. Mr. Zolke.
Was there a change in the 2018 mortgage interest? You said it was up for change.
All right. Right. Is there a change in the mortgage interest for 2019? The answer is we think there will be. The time frame for that is March, April.
So the slide should say 2019 change, not 2018 change.
Oh, okay. So there was something about a 20.
It should say 2019 adjustment.
Okay. Yeah. 2019. Thank you, Dennis.
Don't make fun of my nine.
Right. So there's a 3-year rolling review of that with our mortgage, and this is the year it rolls. To anticipate that there could be an increase is probably practical, but we don't think it'll be too much. But we'll know a lot more here in about 90 days. And so 95 is the number. We're just keeping that going forward.
Can I speak to that for just a moment?
Sure. And then
So-
I saw a hand go up there.
Just to say that our loan is with the Mission Endowment Fund through the ELCA. It does not operate like a normal bank. First of all, you would never get a 3% mortgage for a commercial loan from, from a bank. And then second of all, the interest rates, although they are going up, aren't necessarily what dictate what the Mission Investment Fund is going to do. They seem to only ask that we invest in them, and they in turn invest back into us. So we give them some of the money that we have in our capital campaign fund as an investment, not as and they in turn seem to keep our interest rates low. So it seems to be a very fair, equitable deal, win-win.
Is that what our interest rate is now?
That is where our loan is right now. So yes, no. That's another long story, but nonetheless, we have been very blessed by that. And that it basically, when I got here, our interest rate was 5% something, and we dropped from a payment of roughly $10,500 to about $8,500. So we have been very, very blessed by that arrangement.
Looking long range down, I got two questions, but relative to the mortgage, it's still a big nut to cover, $95,000. And I'm hoping that in mid-range future, we can address a campaign to eliminate the mortgage, to really pay it down. We're fortunately, right now, we just got to the point this year where the interest we pay equaled the amount we paid to principal. This was the first year, so it's been a long time where we've been paying more interest than we have been the principal. We just got over the top of that, and for all us homeowners, you know that's a happy day because it starts going down a little bit faster. Well, boy, if we could reduce that by 100 or 200 or 300,000, it would really make a difference in that mortgage payment. So hopefully we can do that now. Hold your horses. I'm going to give them in the order of which they came. Daphne.
On the previous slide, it mentioned the budget for sending campers.
Yes, the youth.
And I totally support the youth, do everything I can for them, and give money. I'm just kind of curious. I thought that camp and the youth gatherings were basically self-supporting through the fundraising. And if it is, why is it in there?
We did.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We didn't show the income side to that. That's just the expense side. Yeah, there is income from the garage sale. There was an other income number on the previous slide of $70,000 or $80,000. That included the donations that come in from various ways, the garage sale and some other things like that. Anything to add to
Yeah,
that,
we just
Pastor?
every year this comes up, and that we're used to the days where we didn't show the income of such things because the youth had their own checkbook. Those days are long gone. The rules are different for us now. We have to show all income and show all outgoing. Yeah,
Well, it's an outcome.
it goes
in a way,
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Any case, so if the youth raise $20,000, which we expect that they'll roughly do with the garage sale, we have to show that as income into the church, and then we have to show that as outcome or outgoing for the proposed expenditures.
Good question. Does that make sense? Okay. George, don't worry, I haven't forgot you, Dick.
For the past couple of years, if my memory serves me right, we've had an ongoing well project. Are we still doing that?
Question on the wells.
Yep, so we
yeah.
did we supported 2 wells as part of our capital campaign. We did succeed with that. We have completed our goals with that. To be perfectly honest with you, where I see us putting our energies and monies next will be a orphanage in Kenya, where 2 of our own members are currently right now, where they are providing housing for students and kids to get them off the street. This will be a direct tie. It is my goal to make it over there this year and actually eyeball this place so I can come back and tell you all about it. And my hope is that we will figure out a way to fund that because it's something that provides the exact same thing, but on something that we will actually have a lot of contact with.
That's David and Linda Fisher. You may have
That's
seen
David and
there.
Linda Fisher,
Yeah.
yes. And they're actually over there right now as they're completing the building over there.
Yep. Dick.
What's the balance to the mortgage?
Balance to the mortgage? 1.3, or a little less than that, maybe just underneath that now. Yeah, 1.3. Does that sound about right, Ted? 1.3 million on the mortgage? Yeah. It's been the same forever. It seems like. Oh, see, $300,000 over 10 years. $95,000 a year for 10 years is $1 million. We've reduced the budget by $300,000. Hence my thought, we got to figure out a way to get it better. All right, so that's how that works. That's how you have a 30-year mortgage, right, on your house, right? Same kind of logistics there. So I've got a motion approved and second for approval of the budget. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. I think that's it for our agenda. Is there anything else? All right. Let us close in prayer. Uh-oh. Yes, you, lady in the back. Yeah.
I just want to make sure on the report, all the ministry teams have put in there what they have contributed or what they're doing. And I just want to make sure that people know that they can find out what the ministry teams are doing by looking at that.
In the annual report, which is one of the things that we do formally for the synod, yes?
For our own bookkeeping.
Right.
Yes.
So in the document that Pastor had you call up is all of the ministry reports. And please read those, because there's a lot of detail of a lot of good things. You heard me talk about how they're really flourishing.
Absolutely.
And if you're not on a ministry team, I'll put a pitch in there since you brought it up. Get on one. It's a lot of fun, and you'll be rewarded with another diamond in your crown.
Yes. I'm not God. I'm not making promises that I can't keep. But yes, why not?
I might have crossed over the theology line on that one.
You know, all I can tell you is that it's the story of your congregation, and it's a good story. You should be proud. I'm excited to see where we go this year. The Lord be with you again.
Also with you.
Thanks. We conclude all of our worship meeting, all our council meetings the same way every time, and I invite you to do the same. Won't you please rise and stand, grab the hand of the person close by to you, even if you don't like them. And together, would you join me in the words of the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not from temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Before we go, Jack, I just realized, did we take a vote for the budget for 2019?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Go ahead.
But I did forget to ask for an affirmation of a change in our officers.
All right.
And you're supposed to be covering me on this, so I'm rethinking my thoughts on this now. No.
I have it in the minutes.
Okay. Linda Baumgardner has stepped out of the role of secretary but continued on the council, and Susie has stepped forward to do that. At the council meeting, we affirmed that change in those office positions, but I would like to have a motion to approve the action of
So moved.
Pastor and Dennis. All in favor of having Susie as our new secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Amen. All right, you were going to say one more thing?
Yep. That's all I've got.
With that, we stand adjourned.
There we go.